evening, and welcome to Behind the Shadows. My name is Susan Finelli, and I am your host and author of Behind the Shadows, a program where we go behind the shadows of what meets the eye. This evening, we will be going behind the shadows of astrology and numerology. Our guest tonight is Z Starman, who is a friend, a colleague, and an acclaimed New York City-based astrologer and numerologist to the stars. Z Starman has over 20 years' experience as a professional astrologer and numerologist. He offers accurate and affordable professional astrology and numerology consultations and services to individuals and entertainment at corporate and private special events and celebrations. He is the creator of the in-person, one-of-a-kind, entertaining and revealing card reading, Deal Your Own Hand. Z Starman also hosts Astrology and Numerology Now, a call-in talk show on MNN, which airs every Monday evening on Channel 3, Time Warner 57, RCN 84, and FiOS 35. I'm also happy to tell our audience that Z Starman just got a wonderful opportunity at WBAI Radio 99.5 FM on Tuesday evenings from 4 to 5 a.m. And I'm an insomniac, so I've been listening to Z Starman, and instead of the radio putting me to sleep, it's keeping me up. So I'd like to welcome you, Z Starman, to the show. What a pleasure to have you here this evening.
Thank you, Susan. It's a pleasure and an honor to be a guest on Behind the Shadows.
Well, thank you so much. To open our show, I'd like to read a little quote to kind of get us into the discussion of astrology, and the quote is from Joseph Crane. Astrology is one of the great adventures of human civilization and has contributed greatly to people's lives and to our culture over time. Astrology's purpose is to use the positions of the planets and stars in the sky to gather information on the individual and on humanity. Astrology is a system that enables us to understand the past, present, and the future within a universe full of meaning. Let's discuss that a little bit.
Well, it's pretty much an accurate thought what Mr. Crane just said, because astrology is as old as the planet Earth itself. It has evolved over the years in certain areas, from business to love to romance. It's been used through centuries.
Well, before computers, because I know you use a computer to chart, how did astrologers work? How did they chart?
Well, there's, before I did charts by computer, everybody does them now, but there's a complex system of mathematics that has to be taken into consideration, along with longitude and latitude where a person is born. There's a difference from someone born October 30th in New York or in Brooklyn, as opposed to someone born October 30th, let's say in London, England.
Interesting.
Because we're dealing with a system of longitude and latitude and time zones, and there's so many variables and tangibles that go into the calculation of one's astrology chart. But back to the original quote, yes, astrology has been a tool for man for centuries, and just like medicine, it is a science. Different areas of medicine evolve, just like you have improvements in the fields of, let's say, oncology or cardiology. Those are branches of medicine. But in astrology, there's branches of astrology. You can deal with medical astrology. You can deal with my forte, which is relationship astrology. Or you can deal with personal astrology. And over the last 30 years, astrology has just evolved all over the place.
Well, when did you become interested, or rather, when did you realize you were an astrologer?
That's a good question. Let's say in the early or the late 1970s, in my early 20s, I met a person who changed my life. His name is Watkins. He's no longer with us. But he found out that I had an interest in I knew astronomy, which is the study of the heavenly bodies and fixed stars.
Right.
And he said, well, since you know astronomy and astrology, why don't you study astrology? Study astrology. So I spent 13-year journey with him, studying everything I could about astrology. When I met him, he had already been a 25-year astrologer. So he sort of kind of passed down what he knew to me, and a lot of independent study.
Right.
You have to go out and look at the stars at night. That's why
you have a
see
telescope?
Starman. Yeah, I do. I do have a, sort of kind of nice telescope that gets objects in the heavens closer. But you have to go out and look at the planets move. They're in the sky. You just have to know where to look for them.
Where to look for them. Where to look for them. Well, I've heard you say, and I think I heard it was on your radio show or your TV show. I don't remember where I heard it, but astrology, you said, I'm an astrologer, not a fortune teller.
Right.
Talk to me the difference between, because when I listen to you on your shows, and to me it sounds like you're fortune telling. So what's the difference?
Okay. The difference is what I do is that I can tell a person why I say this.
Okay.
You know, fortune tellers and some psychics, and some of them are reputable people. They do what they do for what is known as divination, which is giving an individual answers. They can explain how they got to their deductions. Well, they can't explain. Oh, I don't know. It comes from out of thin air. But astrology, along with numerology, there's a rhyme and a reason to it. And after seeing, I've been doing this 30 years. So I look at the way the planets are on a person's birthday and how the numbers fall on their person's birthday. And I've been told it's my own creativity that makes it seem psychic, but no. Anybody can do what I do. Astrology is easy to learn, but it takes a lifetime to master. So it seems like I'm a psychic, but I'm not. I'm just reading the information and calculating the information based on a person's birthday.
Okay, so you know my birthday.
Yep.
And I know I'm now in a 9 personal year, and I figured that out just listening to your radio show, and I did the math.
Okay.
So, and I think 9 personal year you said is a good year, so I'm happy to hear that.
Okay.
But talk to me a little about, my birthday.
Right.
So tell me what you see or feel.
Well, let's start with the 9 personal year.
Okay.
Your birthday is October 30th.
Correct.
And 2012, the year 2012, is a 5 personal year. How do we get that number? We add 2012. 2 plus 0 plus 1 plus 2 equals the number 5.
Right.
So that's the universal year. So as I say on my radio show, anybody who wants to know their personal year, just add the number 5 onto the month and day of your birthday. So, for instance, your birthday is 10/30.
Right.
So 10/30 equals 40. Plus 5 equals 45. Now, the rules of numerology says when you get a number, you have to reduce it to a single number. In the system, or in the Pythagorean system of numerology, which I use, all numbers vibrate from 1 to 9. So you keep adding a bunch of numbers until you get one single number. And the single number that we get for you for 2012 is the number 9.
Right.
As you already deducted.
Right.
Now, the vibration of the number 9, it's a year of endings for you. It's a year where you're closing out a chapter in your life.
Right.
Because in numerology, cycles run from 1 to 9. So 2012 is a 9 personal year. You're going to be ending things. You're probably going to be finishing a big chapter in your life once again. Usually, it's a good time to get rid of clutter and things that you have in your house, so you can prepare yourself for the new year, which starts in 2013. But in a 9 personal year, 9, once again, is at the top of the scale in the number system. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 usually is an ending period. People leave people behind. people leave places behind and they move on. It's also not doom and gloom, but it's a graduation period. You've accomplished, and also people are rewarded for all their hard work. So maybe the Behind the Shadows will get picked up by a network television show.
Wouldn't that be nice? Yes.
Now, that's something that happens in a 9-year because you've graduated. Now, there are 40 other birthdays who are having 9 years. There are 40 other birthdays. For instance, someone born February 2nd, they're having a 9-year. Let's say someone born March 1st or January 3rd, they're having a 9-year also. But astrology fine-tunes it. Again, there are 40 other birthdays out of 366 that are having 9 years. Now, your birthday, October 30th, and I can look and see where the planets are on the day you were born, and that fine-tunes you even more.
Right.
It gives me a better idea of who Susan is from an astrological point of view. Now, the three most important things when we're looking at someone from an astrological point of view is their sun sign, their moon sign, and their rising sign. When it says it's your sun sign, that's everyone born between, in your case, your sun sign is Scorpio.
Right.
Everyone born between, let's say, October 22nd and December 22nd, the sun is in the constellation or against the backdrop of Scorpio. Your sun sign is who you are. You're a Scorpio. You're very intense. You're very sensitive. Behind the shadows.
Exactly.
Behind the shadows. It's a great name for the host of a television show who's a Scorpio. Because you like delving into the deeper mysteries of life. And it's perfect that a Scorpio would have a show named Behind the Shadows. But to get a little bit more intense, now before we started the show, you told me that you were born at 2:02 in the afternoon.
Correct.
And I did my research. Now at 2:02 in the afternoon on October 30th, the year you were born, the moon moved from the sign of Gemini to Cancer. Because I was worried about this moment at this time of the show, and I said, I got to give Susan a little information. But at exactly 2:02.
Exactly 2:02.
The moon went into the sign of Cancer. So you're a Scorpio with the moon in Cancer. What is the moon sign astrologically? The moon sign tells how you feel about life. It tells a little bit about your background. You probably, in your, the moon in Cancer rules women and family.
Right.
So the moon tells your emotional attitude about life. Now, your sun sign is in a water sign, and your moon sign is a water sign, so you're a very sensitive individual. And people who know you, they have to choose their words carefully. Are you listening, John? You have to choose your words carefully when you talk to someone who has water planets, because they feel things. You sense things long before it happens. Not only do you have the sun in Scorpio, but you have Mercury in Scorpio, and you have Venus in Scorpio. So you're like a super Scorpio. you're that stinger.
I'm a stinger.
That stinger, you better watch it. But water comes in different facets. Since the primary planets in your chart are water signs, water can be hot. Water can be cold. Water is a very moody sign. Sometimes water can be raging like a river, and sometimes water can be calm. So anybody who deals with you, and I'm only talking about you, with the sun in Cancer, the moon in Scorpio, have to know and remember that you're very sensitive, you're a very feeling person, you're a very emotional person, but with 3 planets in Scorpio, you can be a person's best friend. Right, John? You hear that, John? That's your best friend over here. But
don't cross me.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap, and forget about it. Because Scorpio, their nature, they're ruled by the planet Pluto. And Pluto is very underworld. And, they will get you. They will get you physically. They will just when it's a wrap. When they're done with you, they're done with you because they give their souls to people. That's Scorpio. Forget about mama, forget about daddy. I'm your new mommy and daddy when it comes to relationships with a Scorpio.
Interesting. I want to talk to you a little bit about, I remember seeing something on your Facebook, and I discussed it with a naysayer. So, and I want to tell you what her reaction was, and I want to hear what your reaction to it was. Because I was telling a good friend of mine that I'm having Z Starman on my show, and she said, oh, well, I really don't believe in that. I said, well, you know, I said, 2 weeks before Gaddafi got killed, I saw on his Facebook that he said within the next X amount of days, a world leader is going to be assassinated. And her response said, well, look at what's going on in the world. And, you know, anybody could say that.
Right.
So what's your response to that?
Anybody can basically say it, but this is what I do for a living. And just like the meteorologist watches the weather patterns, I watch the planetary movements, and there are certain things that would take another show to explain how I know, but I'm looking at world planets. I'm looking at the charts of world cities like Iraq or Iran or North Korea or Afghanistan. This is what I do. I look at who the leaders are. And something that week when I looked at all these charts and these leaders, I didn't call Gaddafi by name.
No, you did not.
But I felt the energy of the universe. And a part of astrology and also numerology, your reader or the person who's giving out the information, they have to be able to feel the environment. And so this is just something that I felt. And just like a baseball player, I may hit 1,000 sometimes, and sometimes I may hit 200.
Right,
you know,
right,
and I have my good days and I have my bad days. So this is something I felt, and I was lucky enough to share it with everybody else on Facebook.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I heard on your radio show, you were talking about the stock market and how these big investment firms have astrologers on staff. And you gave a quote, I believe, that J.P. Morgan said that millionaires have advisors and billionaires have astrologers.
Right. J.P. Morgan, who was a financial genius.
Yes.
He was the head of U.S. Steel. He sold U.S. Steel, I think in 1910 for $250 million. That's like $1 zillion
today
in today's economy.
Correct.
And he had a saying, and I'll repeat it. Millionaires have financial planners. Billionaires have astrologers.
I want to be a billionaire.
I want to be a billionaire also. Michael Bloomberg, I would imagine, and because astrology and numerology is frowned upon, that's why they won't, or most people who do have astrologers in law offices, in doctors' offices, in investment institutions, they have an astrologer or someone that they can call and tell them, hey, are my planets working? Are my numbers working? So more and more as we move further into the age of Aquarius, common people are having an understanding about astrology, about numerology, that didn't have a lifetime of studying it that I have, but it's common to know at least your moon sign, at least your rising sign, because it's where the world is now. We're leaving behind traditional methods of understanding the world. I think people are sort of kind of moving away from the mosque. They're moving away from the church. They're moving away from the synagogue, and they're looking for alternative answers to what's going on around them from a universal view, a global view, and a planetary view. People want to know.
Well, we had astrology influence in the White House under the Reagan administration. Nancy Reagan
never, President Reagan never admitted to having an astrologer, but Nancy Reagan had Sylvia Brown as an astrologer, and rumor has it that Nancy was running the White House through astrology. And I wouldn't be surprised by that, because people want to know when is the best time to move forward in their affairs and not to do things, because one if you do something on the wrong day, and if it's not planetary correct, it's going to throw your whole day off or your life off or whatever. So a lot of people know, or a lot of corporations, should we merge now? Should we sign this deal?
Right.
Should we do this and that? An astrologer or numerologist will say, no, the vibrations and the forces aren't right for that. Wait until this day.
Well, it's interesting that you say that there are times in your life to do things and times not, because as you know, I'm recovering from foot surgery, and you asked me, well, what day are you having it? Because if you're going to have it in X amount of day, I'm going to tell you not to have your foot surgery that day.
Well, when I said about your foot surgery, it's advisable because every sign in astrology, from Aries all the way to Pisces, rules a part of the body. For instance, Aries is the head. We work our way down. Taurus is the throat. Gemini is the hand and the arms. Cancer is the stomach. But feet are ruled by Pisces because Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. And if you talk to any Pisces people, most of them, they have problems with their feet.
Well, this Scorpio has plenty of problems. I went to the foot doctor today. He said, ask your astrologer about your feet.
But the thing is that it's advisable to try not to have surgery related to a part of your body or doing its sign. For instance, if you were having foot surgery and it was the middle of February to the middle of March, I would say, Susan, wait until after March, because it's kind of perilous to have surgery that's related to the part of the body when the sun is in that part of the body, or the sun sign related to that part of the body is close to where you're having surgery at.
You talk about Mercury in retrograde a lot. And I really don't understand it. I just know that everything in life goes kaflooey when Mercury is in retrograde.
Okay.
So if you could talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, Mercury, what does Mercury retrograde mean? About 4 times a year, the planet Mercury, which is the planet of communications, every planet in our solar system or in astrology, they have a function. For instance, Venus is love, Jupiter is luck and abundance, Saturn shows where there's limitations and restrictions. If we look at the planet Saturn, it has rings around it. And so those rings are symbolic of limitations and restriction. Now, Mercury's job is communication. And about 3 times a year on the average, Mercury goes what is known as retrograde. As we look at Mercury from the Earth against the backdrop of the heavens, it appears to be moving backwards. Now, we get the same effect as New Yorkers when we're riding in the subway and we're in the faster moving subway train that passes the slower moving subway train. So for that split second, the slower moving subway train, it appears to be moving backwards.
Yes.
Same long if you're riding along in the car. If you're in the faster moving car and you pass the slower moving car on the highway, for that split second, the slower moving car, sort of kind of looks like it's moving backwards.
Yes.
That's what we see during Mercury retrograde, or any Mercury retrograde, or any retrograde, because the other planets retrograde also. But Mercury affects us more here on Earth because we're the third rock from the sun, so to speak.
That's right.
And Mercury is the first planet from the sun, so you feel the ripple effect. And Mercury deals with everything dealing with communications and information. And the rule of thumb during a Mercury retrograde is you don't start anything new, you don't buy anything new. Things dealing with communications will be helter-skelter. Usually people's computers break down. Usually information is misunderstood, or things get mistranslated, lost in translation. People have a lot of arguments during a Mercury retrograde, but it's not all doom and gloom during a Mercury retrograde. During a Mercury retrograde period, and our next one is in March.
In March?
In March.
Thanks for the heads up.
It's in March, from about March the 13th until about the end of the month, until about the first week of April. Mercury retrograde is going to happen. So during this time, it's advisable you don't sign contracts, you don't sign business deals, you again, it's not all doom and gloom. It's a time to go back.
Right.
It's a time to go back and take care of unfinished business, make contacts. If you're like an author, let me pick up my manuscript again and pick it up and start writing over again. That's what the Mercury retrograde period is for. It's a time to go back and reassess things and reflect on things. So when it goes direct, your stuff is in order.
Something's on. In the beginning, in your intro, I mentioned that you came up with Deal Your Own Hand.
Right.
What is that?
Excuse me. Deal Your Own Hand is a card system of divination. Divination when you're wanting spiritual information, or for lack of better words, psychic information. But it's a divination of getting information. Now, what is dealing your own hand? This is something that was taught to me about 25 years ago. You see a lot of people do tarot card readers.
Right.
And Deal Your Own Hand is a system of reading people just using a regular deck of playing cards.
Okay.
And it was taught to me by a woman who told me, her name is Barbara, she's deceased now. Hey, let me show you a different way to read people.
Okay, all right. And unfortunately, Z Starman, we're getting cued that we're running out of time.
You're kidding.
No, we're going to have to do this again because we have so much more to talk about. I want to thank you for coming and sharing your expertise and your knowledge.
Thank you.
And I do hope you come again.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to thank you, our audience, for joining us tonight. If there's a topic you would like us to discuss, you can contact me at susan@behindtheshadows.com. If you've missed any of our programs, you can go onto my website at www.behindtheshadows.com and click on Public Access Television. And until next time, remember, the brightest light shines behind the shadows. Thank you so much. What a great show.
Thank you, Susan. It's fabulous. You sure it's 28 minutes?
Oh, right? How quick it went?
You know, it doesn't seem that way when you're
exactly
in the control room or anything like that. It doesn't seem, but I was just getting started.
I know. Well, we'll have you back. Maybe we'll back during that trip.
Okay, now it's time to do the after show. Like Oprah.